If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. I know in this day and age with the Trump administration and some of the now former members of the regime like Elon Musk were bragging about how they were going to be shrinking the size of government, getting rid of all of these unnecessary federal workers, reducing the budget by reducing extraneous expenses. I know it's hard to believe, especially in a day and age of rising unemployment numbers and falling job participation, that there could actually be good news on the job front, but apparently, at least with one governmental department, there is. Looks like for all of their job cuts and agency reductions, there seems to be one agency that is hiring. ICE. Last week, Trump's ICE announced that they're lowering the age for would-be ICE agents to apply for a job. Up until now, you had to be at least 21 years of age to apply, but now they're dropping the age to 18. Trump's administration is offering all sorts of bonuses, all sorts of incentives, things like a $50,000 sign-up bonus and student loan forgiveness. All of these as incentives to join ICE. It's interesting to me because Trump personally blocked Biden's efforts at loan forgiveness, but it seems that he's willing to go ahead and do it because his ethics, like everything else, are completely and thoroughly flexible depending on what he needs at the moment. Situational ethics is one of the two pillars of white supremacy's operational MO. But this is what's going on in the Trump administration right now. They're trying to get more ICE agents, the younger the better, apparently. And reaching out to a bunch of young people, especially teenagers, that's particularly interesting. I guess the Trump administration figures that there's not enough out-of-work 20-somethings and even 30-somethings for them to be trying to recruit. Apparently, I guess it's so hard up for personnel, they got to go all the way down to the teens. And of course, the White House homunculus himself, Stephen Miller, is calling for all patriots, read white males, to join up. Send your application today, he says. I'm sure that scholar is going to be the first one to read all of those resumes, right? If ICE is hiring teenagers at this point, I think that some black youth and 20 and 30-somethings from the black community need to be applying for those jobs. Take advantage is what I say. The problem isn't that ICE is hiring. The problem is they're not hiring enough black folks. That would be my issue. That'd be the problem that I got with all of this. You want to make black folks the face of something? The white media is always trying to make us the face of something. They can make us the face of immigration enforcement. How about that? Make us the face of that one. Make it where there's a black man who's going to be knocking on your door or perhaps kicking it in. The black man's going to be the one throwing handcuffs on you. It's going to be a black woman telling you put your head down when they put you in the van. Make black folks the face of that. Now, of course, the left corner of the white media has already been giving their opposition because they're against anything that the orange man does. And I don't blame them for that. I'm not a cheerleader of his. I also know that there are people who are going to be saying that this is basically a recruitment drive for the dead-enders and the human debris from the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, 3%ers, and the rest of the trash like the January 6 rioters. That's understandable too, considering that a lot of those January 6 rioters actually were in law enforcement or the military. First of all, though, American law enforcement has always been infested with white supremacists. That's the first thing I think needs to be reiterated. You had Proud Boys and their ideological allies who were bragging about how they were already in these police departments long before now. Have you forgotten about that? They didn't need to wait for an engraved invitation from the Temu version of Trailer Park Barbie, Kristi Noem, to apply for a job. They weren't sitting there twiddling their thumbs going, say, you don't think that maybe ICE is hiring, do you? These guys have always been trying to get themselves placed in some form of law enforcement. They've been doing that for the longest time. That's their MO. They've been doing it for decades, if not centuries. The difference now is that at least people are going to begin to take note when they do it. They know who the members of these white supremacist street gangs are, family. Is this a problem? Of course it is, but it's not a new one. That's my point. Unless you just don't have the brains that God gave a coconut, you're supposed to already assume that these cops and federal agents are already card-carrying white supremacists. You're supposed to be assuming that. All the stories that we get of institutional racism in law enforcement, are you actually going to be sitting here catching the vapors at the idea that there's some white supremacists applying for these jobs? They've been doing it the whole time. Unless you're just suicidally naive, you should never be thinking, well, maybe that guy over there with the gun and the badge, maybe he's not a white supremacist. Well, I'll just wait and see if he tries to kill me or something. Then I'll make up my mind. No, you're supposed to automatically assume it. That's just common sense. And to hell with anybody trying to sit here going, well, isn't that prejudice? No, it's not prejudicial at all. That's pattern recognition. As long as it's been going on, you'd be a fool not to recognize, hey, there seems to be a pattern that plays itself out each and every time with these guys. But my point of this evening address is, no matter what you're seeing from the white media, this is not a new policy at all. The only difference here is that now, hopefully, people are starting to pay some attention, and that is a good thing. This is why I'm glad that the orange man's back in office. People can't close their eyes and hit the reset button like they tried to do during Biden's failed administration. That's the beauty of what's going on right now. People are actually taking note of it. The forces of white supremacy have been emboldened, and people just simply won't be able to ignore them now. They'll have to decide whether they're finally going to crush these guys or allow themselves to be run over. They're going to have to make a decision. That's what a lot of folks don't like. The real problem for most of these people who are clutching their pearls right now isn't that there's the Trump administration trying to entice racists to become law enforcement. The problem for these people is that now they know it, and they're terrified that somebody may actually expect them to do something about it. That's the part they don't like. That's the part that they're worried about. That's why they're sitting there going, oh, you can't be allowing this. They can't pretend as if Merrick Garland or the empty pantsuit herself, Kamala Harris, is going to do anything. They can't do anything about these racists as it is because they're not in office, which is just as well because when they were in office, they did less than nothing. When the racists are being open and blatant, they actually bring attention to themselves, and attention brings scrutiny, and enough scrutiny brings opposition. Just look at what happened with moron DeSantis and his asinine culture war crap in Florida. He and Chris Russo thought that they were on a roll, right up until the moment that they weren't. And you ain't heard a whole lot from Chris Rufo these days, haven't you? Yeah, because their little old momentum has run out. All that crap ran its course, like I told you it was going to. That doesn't mean that they're not still there and that they're not still a problem. But what it does mean is you need to understand where your power comes from and where your enemy's power comes from. So yeah, I know that this is actually quite different than what you thought I might say to this kind of thing, or what most people have been trained to say to this kind of thing. But we got to be realistic here. The problem is not that the bad guys are attempting to be on the march. The problem is that not enough of us are. The issue here isn't whether or not the 5%ers, 3%ers, the 0%ers, the loud boys, or the oath keepers, who I like to call the oaf keepers. These morons, of course, they're going to be sitting here trying to find their way to slither into some law enforcement agency because they're desperately hoping that you won't be. The answer to the rampant racists on the march is not for black folks to sit back and hope that these savages discover civilization. The answer is for black folks to get in the game. As soon as you hear about these white supremacists calling themselves doing something, you're supposed to be right there to confront them. You're supposed to be right there to make it clear. Oh, no, ain't none of this mess going to be going on without us being in the mix. Oh, you guys are calling yourselves trying to front load this agency with a whole bunch of your folks. We're going to make sure that some of ours are in there, too. You got to be realistic about that. The bad guys are sitting here trying to throw out a welcome mat for all of their pals. You're supposed to be standing on that welcome mat and making sure that there's less room for them. That's being realistic about the situation. Or you can sit back and wait, and who knows, maybe in a few years, Kamala Harris will become president, you hope, and maybe she'll do something. But she's already made very clear she's not going to do anything that's only going to benefit black people. So since she's the child of immigrants, should she be expecting us to do anything that's only going to benefit her? This is the reason why it's important that you listen to the black media. Rather than going into hysterics about every headline that the white media presents to you and frames it in such a way as to make you get scared and anxious, instead you're supposed to put on your thinking cap. And the first question that you're actually supposed to ask is, has whatever it is that they're trying to get me terrified about already happened before? Is this some unprecedented thing, or is it something that's going on right now? See, that's part of how the white media gets away with stuff. They take things that are constantly going on all the time. They'll go ahead and put a headline about that and make you think, oh my God, I can't believe the sun came up this morning. When did this start? That's the kind of stuff that they do. When the reality happens to be at least 2/3 to almost 3/4 of the stuff that the white media calls news, when you read it, you're looking and going, this is just a reprint of the same crap you told me last month. That's what they do with a 24-hour news cycle. That's what they have to do. Now, sure, it's new that ICE has lowered the age for their recruits. That's definitely new, but that's a distinction without a difference. The class and caliber of individual that they're looking for is the same. Only thing that's changed is the age that they're willing to accept. My question is whether or not there's going to be black folks, whether they be teenagers, 20-something, 30-somethings, whatever, who are going to be making it a point to see what opportunities for themselves can be gleaned here. Because that's what's missing here. This is not about whether or not black folks can dominate ICE. That's not going to be the case. We know that's not going to happen. But the question is whether or not black people are going to make it their mission that they're going to be in the mix at all. The bad guys are going to be the bad guys. We're not counting on these guys to stop. It is our job, however, to make sure that we don't stop. They open up the door, we're going to be showing up, sharp elbows at the ready, pushing people aside, hitting them in the rib cage. Hey, y'all need to back up. Y'all can't have all of these jobs now. Because you know what? You better believe that a whole lot of those folks who are probably related to some of the people from Latin America or in Asia or what have you, they're going to be trying to apply for those jobs. They're not going to be sitting there going, well, I just assume that they ain't going to hire none of us. No, they're going to be putting in their applications regardless. That's what they're going to be doing. And you better believe that a lot of those people who just so happen to be Hispanic or just happen to be Asian or what have you, those very people are going to wind up getting hired. Not all of them, but more than a few they've already done with Border Patrol. And speaking of Asians signing up to be ICE agents, Dean Cain, the has-been who played Superman back in the 90s and ain't had a job since, that dude of all people, he's bragging about how he's going to be applying to ICE. And he says that he's already like an auxiliary sheriff's deputy and a volunteer cop and stuff like this. Yeah, he might as well. I mean, it's not exactly like he's getting much work in Hollywood these days. But that guy, he's already talking about him applying for ICE. And he's not the only one. So the point is you got a whole bunch of fools who ain't got no business being anywhere near a badge or a gun. And here they are saying, I'm going to be signing up. You see what's going on here? All these other groups, they ain't sitting here quaking in their boots going, oh, the Proud Boys gonna get us. Instead, a lot of these idiots, even some of them who have the same mentality, they're sitting here going, let me see if I can get me one of them jobs. If there's any group of people who should be the least hesitant and who are the most deserving of having positions to be able to throw handcuffs on people and being able to walk around with a badge and a gun and say, now I am the law, that would be us. So yeah, if Stephen Miller and all of his racist pals are calling themselves doing a job drive, we should be there to put our bid in. If ICE is hiring, then we have every right to make sure that we don't get frozen out. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Jimmy Whitfield, Glenda Tice, Pamela Guidry, Jesse Good, and Sa. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.